indicates the ability to personally relate to someone else, especially to God Himself. Being able to know Him, being able to love Him, being able to obey Him, being able to worship Him.
Back in 1999, a team of scientists first mapped a human chromosome's genetic code, calling their breakthrough the first chapter in the Book of Life. But the truth is, the real first chapter in the Book of Life has been around for millennia. I'm referring to Genesis chapter 1. Today on Grace to You, John MacArthur shows you why you can trust the Bible, especially its opening chapter, as he continues looking at the battle for the beginning. He'll show you what it means and what it doesn't mean to be made in the image of God, and what being created in His image means for your life and eternity. With today's lesson, here's John MacArthur.
In our study of Genesis, we have come now to day 6 in God's creation, the pinnacle of God's creative work, creation of man, in spite of the clear teaching of the Bible, the clear teaching of Genesis and other passages of Scripture. Evolutionists, some of them calling themselves Christians and therefore theistic evolutionists, that is, that God caused evolution to bring man into existence. These evolutionists have tried, against the clear testimony of Scripture that God created all these things in a day, tried to prove that man evolved, that everything evolved from a one-celled creature through water animals, amphibians, apes, to finally the erect man who is then the pinnacle of creation. But scientists, though they deny the Bible, have found it impossible to find proof for the evolution of anything, including the evolution of man. The reason they can't find proof for it is because there isn't any. You can't find proof for something that didn't happen. And evolution never happened. And that's why they can't find any proof for it. In 6 24-hour or solar days, God made the entire universe, the earth, and all its living creatures. And as we've been saying, He did it about 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. Now that does bring up the issue of fossils, and I have to address this. I know many of you are students, and even in elementary school and the later grades, certainly in junior high and high school and on into college, you're faced with a supposed fossil record that proves that man evolved from some kind of a four-legged ape-like creature. How do we deal with the supposed fossil testimony that is used to prove evolution? Don't scientists actually have missing links? It seems like every few years or every few months, some scientist claims to have found some transitional ape-man form. Do they have missing links? The answer, absolutely not. Absolutely not. A most interesting scientific book called In the Beginning is written by Walter Brown, who is a PhD from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. For 21 years, Walt Brown was the chief of science and technology studies at the Air War College and professor at the Air Force Academy. A very fine scientist. He has exposed, as have many others, the lies of evolutionists trying to make their case. He writes that stories claiming that fossils of primitive ape-like men have been found are grossly overstated. For example, it is now universally acknowledged that Piltdown Man was a total hoax, and yet it exists and has existed in textbooks for more than 40 years. Prior to 1978, the evidence for Ramapithecus consisted of a mere handful of teeth and jaw fragments. Ramapithecus was one of the largest categories of transitional ape man. We now know that it came simply out of some teeth and jaw fragments. It is now known that Ramapithecus was just an ape. The dethroning of Ramapithecus, supposedly the first human, the dethroning has been a serious blow. We now believe, scientists believe, that Ramapithecus was probably the extinct relative of orangutan, nothing more. One of the other supposed transitional forms is called Nebraska man. The only evidence, by the way, for Nebraska man turns out to be a pig's tooth. Quite a leap. The skulls of the famous Peking man are considered by many experts to be the remains of apes that were systematically decapitated and exploited for food by man. The classification Homo erectus is considered by most experts to be a category that should never have been created with regard to them. The first confirmed limb bones of Homo habilis have recently been discovered. They show that this animal clearly had ape-like proportions and should never have been classified as Homo or man-like. And then Australopithecines, as I mentioned last time, which were made famous by Lewis and Mary Leakey, found most in South Africa, are quite distinct from humans. Several detailed computer studies of the Australopithecines have shown that their bodily proportions were not intermediate between man and living apes at all. Further study of their inner ear bones that were used to maintain balance show a striking similarity with those of chimpanzees and gorillas, but a complete difference with those of humans. One of the fossils, a 3.5-foot tall, long-armed, 60-pound adult called Lucy, you remember the discovery of Lucy, was initially presented as evidence that the Australopithecines walked upright in a human manner. However, studies of Lucy's entire anatomy, not just a knee joint, now show this is not true. Lucy, hate to tell you, swung from trees. For about 100 years, the world was led to believe that Neanderthal man was stooped and ape-like. Recent studies show that this erroneous belief was based upon some Neanderthals who were crippled with bone disease such as arthritis and rickets. Neanderthal man, Heidelberg man, and Cro-Magnon man were completely human. Artist depictions of them, especially of their fleshy portions, are quite imaginative and not at all supported by the evidence. And so it goes. And furthermore, as we've been saying all along, the dating methods of evolutionists are grossly in error as well. So bottom line, they don't have any transitional forms. They don't have any proof for the evolution of anything, certainly no proof for the evolution of man. And the reason they're having a hard time proving it is because it didn't happen, and therefore it can't be proven. What did happen is recorded for us in the Bible. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 1. On the first day, according to verses 24, and on the sixth day, I should say, according to verses 24 and 25, day 6 featured the creation of land animals. Cattle, I mentioned this last time, would be domestic and tame. Creeping things, all the creatures low to the ground. Beasts,